So you also take a lot of flack from the Daily Maverick, from Greg Mills and from
Yes.
from these guys. Why do they have such a okay, well, let me read a portion of the article that Greg Mills penned. The last time this institute, referring to the Pan-African Institute for Socialism, of which you are a director, took a shot at the Brenters Foundation, it was supposedly the spider at the center of a large web of intrigue. According to that article, the capture of South African independent media involves an opaque network of funders, editors, and publications facilitated by US State Department actors. This was written by Ray Hartley, the former editor of the Sunday Times and a research director of the Brenters Foundation. Do you stand by that?
Absolutely.
Why do you say that?
Well, because we did thorough research and we were able to point to money that comes from institutions in the US, which are known to be associated with or fronts for the CIA and for other government institutions. I think, it's quite clear if you look at the agenda of the Daily Maverick, what it's pushing. I mean, it's entirely pro-US, entirely in support of, Ukraine and anti-Russian. So that, unlike me and the South African government, the Daily Maverick is not non-aligned. It's chosen a side in this fight. You would ask yourself, as a South African publication, why on earth would they be doing that? Well, I think it's that they have to pay the piper, because ultimately what the Daily Maverick is also doing is it's involved in this agenda to consistently and always vilify and delegitimize the ANC. And I think there is a program of what is known as regime change in this country. It's always been there, various NGOs funding for political parties, as Nato was saying earlier. It's nothing new that foreigners are giving money to support opposition parties in South Africa. If you look around the world, that's been the pattern. In South America and the Middle East and so on, that's what these governments do. Instead of allowing us to deal with our own internal issues, they fund particular political parties who support them and toe their line ideologically. So, I stand by it, and I think it's obvious if you read the Daily Maverick, And it's a shame, because when the Daily Maverick started out, it was actually an incredible publication. It was really gritty, against the grain, no holy cows. It took shots at everybody. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think I've ever seen an anti-DA article in the Daily Maverick in recent times. I don't think I've seen, anything other than anti-the ANC. If you read the Daily Maverick, South Africa is the most corrupt country in the world. The ANC is the most corrupt political party. The world is falling apart. We're a failed state. It's this whole narrative, And while we've got many challenges and many problems, that is just such a straw man that you'd have to be an idiot to believe it. And you'd have to be paid very well by somebody to write it and pretend that you're a journalist.
So Greg Mills and Ray Hartley, they work for the Brenters Foundation. Now, the Brenters Foundation are known to have funded the trip of John Steenhuisen to go look at things in the Ukraine. They funded a trip for the Archbishop of Cape Town to do the same thing. The Brenters Foundation is a foundation that's funded entirely by the Oppenheimer family. Why do you think this is problematic within our polity?
Well, it's not entirely funded by them.
Mainly.
It was started by them, but it's now also funded by various foreign governments and the Open Society Foundation and all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Well, I think it is problematic because the wealthy and the elite of this country who have the resources are obviously trying to shape public opinion and political processes in this country in a particular manner. And the reason they want to do that is because of what they've always done in Africa, which is colonize us, exploit us, take our resources, and so on. Because the ANC has policies that go against that, what they'd like to see is to get rid of the ANC and to have a political party in power or an alliance of political parties who will toe their line and assist them to get back to the good old days, when South Africa belonged to Anglo-America. You know, it wasn't called Anglo-America for nothing. Its shareholders came from England and America. So I think that's the agenda, and we've seen that in other countries, you know, where they've overthrown political parties that have radical programs. You know, Zimbabwe is another example. Whatever the faults of the regime in Zimbabwe, and there are many, it's quite clear that they've been punished for the fact that they did radical land reform. And you can go and look at countless other countries. If you look at Venezuela, exactly the same. And of course, the case of Cuba, which has, you know, been a peaceful country, never bothered anybody ever since it was formed, acted only in solidarity with the poor and the marginalized all over the world, has sent soldiers and doctors in solidarity with people across the globe. And it's done all of this while enduring sanctions and direct attempts to assassinate its leaders. You know, I don't know how many times the CIA tried to kill Fidel Castro. So it's nothing new. It was there with us, as they say.
I like the one story of the assassination attempt of Fidel Castro. A woman was sent to kill him, and she, with clear instructions, and she came out, listen, I didn't kill him. I had sex with him. He was just, his magnetism. That's how you turn a would-be assassin into a comrade.
They didn't call him El Jefe for nothing.
El Jefe. Oh. Just to close off this Daily Maverick, Greg Mills and his pal, what's the dude's name? Greg Mills and Ray Hartley. Talk about the Daily Maverick. So they publish things on the Brentis Foundation page, and they are linked to many other institutes that are NATO aligned and US State Department aligned, like the Royal United Services Institute. I think Greg Mills was an advisor to one of the UK Defence Force generals as they stomped their way across Afghanistan. In the Daily Maverick, it's covered, when they talk about Ukraine, it's covered as War in Ukraine op-ed. Should this not be labeled as sponsored content, or...
That's precisely the point, yeah. They're not being honest about it. You know, and I've said there's a double standard in this country. If you're a political party, you're required to reveal who your donors are. You know, what they do is they fudge the issue, and, you know, they portray themselves as being independent, etc. But the truth is, media is always a contested terrain. What we've tried to do in this country is create rules to make it fair. What they're trying to do is do everything to dodge those rules. I mean, they are literally the dodgiest people ever. You know, and how can you trust people who behave in this manner? Meanwhile, they think that they should hold politicians to account for their excesses and for their biases and their, you know, their funders. But they think that they are unaccountable. It's positioning themselves as the conscience of South Africa. You know, it's just utterly hypocritical.
I like the Daily Maverick. I like some of their journalists on crime, on courts. I like Vincent Kreyvach and stuff. I like Velani Ludidi on politics. I like there's somebody who also writes about gangs and courts. On every issue, they are like really on point, just except on international relations.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. You know, they are very good journalists, and as I said, to my mind, it was an exceptional publication. But it's quite clear that there's a particular line that is pushing on international relations and on our government in this country. And that's the issue I have, you know. They used to publish me a lot as well, you know.
They don't anymore. They don't. I've spoken to a lot of people.
I even sent a rejoinder to one article, and they just refused to publish it. So much for freedom of speech.
Yeah, exactly. Freedom of...
you're free to say what you like as long as I like it.
Yeah, exactly. That's, well, Branko Brkić, how's it, bro?